Hi, welcome to the last week of our rock cycle project. We're now in week 4 and we're in the final phase of our project. This is going to be a long video lesson, but it goes for the entire week. And so if halfway through the week you get lost or you're not sure what you're supposed to be doing to wrap up the rock cycle project, you might want to come back and watch this video, or at least certain parts of it. So in the MOSAMAC projects, the final part of the project is always the engineering part. And this is where we're asked to build or design. For this particular project, we're going to have to stop at the design phase. But if you want to try to build something and you're at home and have the supplies, you're welcome to do that. So before I start this slideshow on the engineering portion of the MOSAMAC, I want to bring you back to the entry event from the first day of week 1. The driving question for this project is, how does weathering affect monuments? And you read an article here about how different monuments around the world, both natural and man-made, are being destroyed. And you should know by now that weathering is a big part of the rock cycle. Now, you might find this interesting for research because I did link a bunch of articles on weathering of monuments right here in the entry event. Recall your challenge. Your challenge, and this is the topic for this week, is to choose a famous man-made or natural monument that's currently in danger of being destroyed by weathering and erosion. Now, here's where the rock cycle comes into play. You need to use your knowledge of the rock cycle and the different types of rocks in the rock cycle to plan and design a solution to protect these monuments. So you're going to find that different rocks have different qualities. Some of them are more susceptible to weathering and erosion. Some are made of much stronger crystals of different minerals. And so you'll need to do quite a bit of research on your monument before you design a way to save it. So back to the slideshow. Let's go ahead and go through this together. These slides are linked in Echo if you'd like to go through them one by one. Here's this very simple rock cycle. You know that igneous rock comes from the cooling of magma. Weathering and erosion can affect an igneous rock and turn it into sediments, but so can metamorphic rock or sedimentary rock. They can be eroded into sediments as well. Heat and pressure on either an igneous, sedimentary, or metamorphic rock can turn it into another kind of rock. And enough heat and pressure on any of these rocks turn them into metamorphic rocks and eventually back to magma. So we're really focusing on the weathering and erosion part of the rock cycle for the end of this project. So we know that igneous rock comes from the hardening of lava or magma. Metamorphic rock is a rock that's been changed by intense heat and pressure. And sedimentary rock forms through the depositing and hardening of sediments, usually in the bottom of a stream bed, river, ocean, or lake. So, weathering and erosion have a huge role in the rock cycle. It's basically the driving force of recycling of rocks. So look at this man-made structure. This is just a cement pillar, and you can see that over time it has cracked. It's got some different coloration and spots. You can almost see a little bit of maybe some moss or lichens growing over there. And here's a very natural rock formation. You can see that over time, wind, water, waves have carved away at the shoreline. So weathering and erosion can affect both natural and man-made structures that are made out of rock. So a lot of structures around the world are made up of different stone materials. Weathering and erosion can play a huge role in the destruction of buildings around the world. This is probably a paved street, and this is the side of a building. And we live in a state where weathering and erosion takes a huge toll on our roads. If you guys have ever driven through a pothole, you are experiencing weathering and erosion. So here are a few monuments that students have researched in the past. You certainly can look into these, or you can find your own. This is a rock outcropping that kind of looks like a face. This is an artist's drawing from actually a long time ago, early in the 1900s. It's called the Man the Mountain in New Hampshire. And this is actually what it looks like now. It's eroded most of the face and the head away. All right, that is not the correct picture for Arches National Park. There's one. So Arches National Park is out west, and a lot of these arches were formed naturally from wind carrying bits and pieces of sand and just kind of slowly making holes in the rock bigger. And eventually these arches become so weak that they crumble and the arch is no longer there. So this is a really famous one called the Wall Arch in Arches National Park, and it's now gone. All right, this is an artist's drawing of what the Colosseum used to look like. The Colosseum is made out of a specific type of rock. I won't tell you in case you decide to research it. And here's what it looks like today. Lots and lots of visitors at the Colosseum, and humans can actually speed up the process of weathering and erosion. So you're going to have to think about first what kind of a monument you'd like to research more about. Once you decide on your monument, you're going to have to come up with a well thought out design plan to address these issues of weathering and erosion. Now, keep in mind that sometimes you can't stop the weathering and erosion altogether, but you can slow it down. And that process is called mitigation. It means I can't make the problem go away, but I can slow it down. So you are going to act as if you are an engineer to design a solution that either prevents or mitigates, and you'll have to decide which, weathering and erosion for a famous monument. And I really want you to remember that the word mitigate just means to make the problem less serious. So here's your process through the week. And I'll show you some documents that'll make your life a little easier. You're going to choose a monument and focus on that one particular monument. You're going to plan and design your solution by writing information down, making some sketches, and then you're going to make what we call a technical sketch or a technical drawing. We'll go over the requirements for technical drawing, but we're talking about like your absolute best work. And some students choose to do that on paper, some choose to do it in a Google drawing, but it's going to have to include a lot of detail before it's considered a technical sketch. And you are going to turn this sketch in, not to present it to the class, but I will take the image that you send to me and put it in a class slideshow. And you will be able to, when you submit your picture, type a little blurb up about what your solution does, and then I'll put that in the slideshow. I'm considering doing a slideshow with editing capabilities, but I'm not exactly sure if we'll do that yet, or I'll just take your submissions on Echo. So we don't have team roles this year because we're not working in a group, but I will give you some hints in this slideshow of things that I've just added through the years as students have done this project. So the first day, I guess you could call this day one, is to think about the driving question and then pick a monument. So here's some ideas. You don't have to pick one of these. And if you think you've got another idea and you're like, oh, I don't know, should I do this or not? Just email either me or Mr. Haney and we can tell you if it's a good idea or not. So here's some man-made monuments to think about. The Sphinx in Egypt, Mount Rushmore in the United States, Stonehenge is in England, Chichen Itza is in Mexico. Those are man-made. The Devil's Tower is actually not man-made. This is out west in the United States, as well as Arches National Park. So once you've decided which monument you want to use, then you're technically on day two. And we have a planning handout that you're going to do by yourself. I know it says group planning, but we don't really have that ability anymore. You're going to fill out this document. This is going to be submitted. This is your evidence of planning. You're going to recall what you learned about the rock cycle. You're going to choose the monument and do some research. You have to know what kind of rock this monument's made of. You need to know what processes made that rock. Then you need to figure out, how did this monument come to be? If it's man-made, how was it built? Who built it? When? If it's natural, talk a little bit about the processes that perhaps made that monument. You're going to have to research what we currently know about the factors that are weathering this monument. What's happening to it? Maybe a little bit about what people have already tried. For instance, the Sphinx has a long, long history of people trying to prevent and mitigate further weathering and erosion. So once you've researched the monument, I know it says group, but you're going to brainstorm what are we going to do. Part of it has to do with where the monument's located and how big it is. Some of these monuments are huge. Some are a little bit smaller. Some are in dry climates. Some are in tropical rainforest climates. You need to understand that climate has a lot to do with the rate of weathering and erosion. So does pollution. If your monument is in a very polluted urban area, a big city, like for instance, the Taj Mahal in India, there are higher instances of acid rain and smog that will play a role in weathering and erosion. So once you get through that process of brainstorming, now you have to pick a plan. Now, this I would say is the hardest part because you need to come up with something that somebody could actually do in real life. I'll show you a silly one in a minute, but these are some things that people currently do to prevent excessive weathering and erosion. This could be like a starting ground. Like, where could I start with an idea? Let me explain some of these. This particular example looks like a satellite dish. It's actually just something to reflect sunlight and rays of sun to keep things warm, because the freezing and melting of water actually can cause rocks to break down. If water gets in a crack, water freezes, expands, and breaks. This is something that can be used to keep things at a stable temperature. There's always downfalls, and we call these considerations and trade-offs. Well, this is a solar panel. If there's no sun, the system isn't going to work. You have to consider the trade-offs for a certain design. This is really an ancient way of preventing erosion down hills and mountainsides. If you have a mountain that's on a hill that's being washed away, this can prevent water from rushing down a hill. It is hard to make, and you basically are altering the environment forever. So you may not want to look at these stair-step lines. This is called a geostuia. It's a weird word, but this is a covering on rock. So you can actually put a protective covering so that it seals all the cracks and crevices. And it is altering the monument drastically, but if done right, could prevent it from weathering away. There's some trade-offs here as well. You start screwing in plates over top of monuments, and you could further the damage on accident. All right, some monuments are just covered with crud, right? Lichens, mosses. There could be all kinds of living material. Sometimes people just have to continuously power wash, and this would, be okay if you could get to it, if it was accessible. But sometimes when you use power washers, you can actually rip away some of the rock as well. So you have to be really careful. This is like a sun awning. This is kind of neat. Protects the rock from sun and rainwater, but you can see that this probably wouldn't be very cost effective if it's a huge monument or if it requires electricity to run. Oops, go back. All right, here's another type of structure that can prevent landslides, kind of like this over here. This is just almost like a seawall of sorts. It's just preventing the dirt from sliding down the hill. It's called a landslide buttress. And for those monuments that are high traffic for people, a lot of people like to go up to monuments and pick off a piece and say, oh, I have a piece of the Sphinx. And, millions of people doing that over the years really can take its toll. So some people have come up with an idea to just have viewing platforms and, barriers so that people just can't go walk up on and touch these different monuments. So these are just ideas. You can totally be unique, and you don't have to do one of these. You can pick something completely different. So back to our document. So you've got your idea, you think you know what you want to do, Now you have to design the solution on paper. Are you going to prevent or mitigate weathering and erosion? What's your design going to do? What are you actually going to stop? If your monument is constantly being eroded by excessive rainfall, you need to tell how your solution is going to stop excessive rainfall from hitting your monument. Okay, so you have to know what your design is going to do. Is this a brand new design, or are you just going to improve upon something that's already being done? Maybe you did a bunch of research and you found out that people have been trying to save this monument like forever. What are you going to do? You need to tell about how the understanding of the rock cycle affected your decision. So this is just a little blurb, a little shout out to the rock cycle. Okay, and you're going to describe in detail how your design works. So this would be a good paragraph to send to me with your picture so I can understand how it works. All right, so let's talk about the technical design or the sketch. So way back, I made this picture on the board. This is my silly sketch of how to save the Sphinx. Now, nobody is going to build a giant umbrella over the Sphinx, okay? So this is just for fun. But this might be what your technical sketch looks like. Use this as a checkoff. There are 17 points for this sketch. So you have to have a title. What is this called? What is this design? This is my umbrella solution for the Great Sphinx. Notice that I have information for the viewer with numbers. So measurements are important. Okay, so it's a 300-foot wide umbrella. It's great, right? I have 125 feet of rope barrier. I have a 100-foot viewing platform. Your detail in your sketch is important. Labels in your sketch are important. I didn't know that this was a rope barrier, right, until I labeled it. You need to use a ruler or any sort of straight edge for lines. I know I didn't do that on the board because it was kind of difficult. And then, annotations at the bottom will help us understand what your solution is doing. Okay, so some ways to turn this in. If you do it on a piece of paper, you can just take a picture and put it in Echo. If you like using Google Drawing, you can certainly make something in Google Drawing, but it still has to have all the labels and annotations. Okay, so your technical sketch could go on this paper right here if you wanted to use it. It's got a nice little checklist here, but you actually only need to turn in the information that you typed in the document from here up. So pages 1 through 3. All right, pages 4 and 5 are just for your technical sketch. Okay, so let's look at the calendar for week 4. I want to point out this is where my video lesson is going to be. By Monday, you need to pick a monument, create the plan. All right, you can turn in your pages 1 through 3 in Echo Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, and work on your sketch so that you can send it to me by the end of the week so I can put it in that slideshow for a gallery walk. And that'll just be where people can see everybody else's sketches. All right, this wraps up the project this week. So on Friday, you'll have a post test and a reflection journal. And then we're going to start a new project next week. So this video was kind of long, I know, but I went through a lot. It's for the whole week. You can get to all of these slides and all of these documents that I showed you from the agenda, from Echo. And I encourage you to email me with any questions, especially if you're stuck on choosing a monument and you want some help. All right, so good luck. Have fun. This is the last week of the project. We'll see you later.